Emails. We get a lot of them here at the 1600. And today I have producer Mickey back in the cut to help us wade through our disastrous mailbag to find some of the good ones, good questions that you guys have sent in so we can answer them here.
This country was stone cold dead.
Mickey, good to see you as always.
You're a popular guy. You get a lot of emails.
I do get a lot of emails, and I shouldn't call it my inbox a disaster. It can be a disaster depending on what I write.
I've seen it.
Yeah, it's pretty
bad.
It's pretty bad. But I love hearing from people. It's actually one of the perks of the job, I think. So I enjoy what people write in, even when they're calling me an idiot. So yeah, let's see what we got in the hopper today.
First question comes from Bill. It's a good one. He says, why should Congress pass any laws when SCOTUS considers stare decisis no longer relevant and utilizes the unitary executive theory that allows the president, whose job it is to enforce the laws, to choose which laws he will obey and which ones he will ignore? Congress passes laws to protect the independence of federal agencies. If the president ignores these laws and SCOTUS approves this decision, why bother passing laws?
You always start with these super intense
Well-
political questions, but I guess that's the point.
He's thought a lot about this.
He has.
You know,
It's a good question. So stare decisis is the principle that the court's opinion in previous decisions should influence its decision making today. It's like 100-year-old principle. The current court, the 6-3 majority conservative court that we have now, is not big into stare decisis, to say the least. They've been overturning precedents left and right under the Trump administration. They really don't have any use for this precedent. So there's a case in front of the Supreme Court right now. I think it's called Slaughter v. Trump. And it's about the conservative majority appears prepared to overturn this 1935 precedent that really just limits presidential powers, right? The idea being that, the president can't fire the heads of certain independent agencies. They're supposed to be protected from White House interference. The court's probably going to overturn that. But in terms of his actual question of is he asking sort of what should Congress go on a lawmaking strike because the Supreme Court is the one who's actually making policy? I mean, Congress doesn't make laws as it is, right?
he just seems caught up on the fact that it's Trump is just going to do whatever he wants.
Well, I think
He's
that's
got SCOTUS on his side.
right. That's more or less true, and the Republicans have, spent years and years making that true. But yeah, I mean, Congress doesn't pass laws. Congress exists now. They use reconciliation to pass a spending bill in the first term of a presidency, and that's basically it. So the idea that they would, stop bothering to pass laws is sort of the question doesn't really work because they don't do anything as it is anyway.
Okay, Bill has a follow-up.
A follow-up, okay. Hit me, Bill.
It's a good one. Do you think Trump is a sick? Do you think Trump is a sick, egomaniacal narcissist marching our government towards autocracy? Are you more worried now than you were at the beginning of the year?
Okay, another easy one. Yeah, I mean, am I more worried now than at the beginning of the year? I think the answer to that question is probably, it's definitely yes. I took a lot of heat in the sort of interregnum period this time last year between the election and Inauguration Day because I was writing that I had this sort of flicker of hope that, because Trump had done the job before, because he couldn't run again, that he was going to come in to office. He was going to, staff his cabinet with smart, effective people. And he was going, even if I didn't agree with sort of his modus operandi, he was at least going to be effective in, doing certain things and maybe, maybe overturning some of the heuristics or some of the principles and the status quo that need to be overturned, right? That is the one good thing about Trump is that he is not afraid to, try stuff out. And he has been more effective. There's no question about that, but probably not in a good way. I think that, the first bet that this was going to be essentially a rerun of the first Trump presidency was when he installed some of these people as cabinet secretaries who really have no business being anywhere near elected office. I mean, he's got people in there who are smart, like Marco Rubio at State, Scott Bessent at Treasury. These guys are at least, they have experience in diplomacy and in business and economics. But then RFK, Pete Hegseth, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi. I mean, these people are just jokers. So to answer your question, Bill, Yes, I'm slightly more worried than I was, I guess, at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, feels like a leading question.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. I really like this question from Caroline. She asks, "What is one political belief you used to accept but now question?"
A political belief I used to accept but now question. Oh, that's a good one. Um, okay, so I would say as a sort of like card-carrying liberal for my whole life, I always sort of gave a lot of credence to the idea that sort of the NGO industrial complex, right? All of the nonprofits that kind of run policy, especially in Democratic administrations, we're more or less doing the right thing and at least trying to be effective. I don't believe that anymore. I think that the theory that people who will work to solve a problem that results in them no longer being paid, if it's solved, is just you know. I don't know who said that. That's a famous quote that I mangled, but I think that's more or less true. I think that the NGO complex is probably bad for democracy. Even some of these nonprofits that are at least trying to do the right thing, they spend way too much on overhead. There's way too much bureaucracy. Nothing gets done. And we were talking last week in the newsletter about this thing that the Dell family, the PC billionaire and his wife, are doing by essentially they're giving away $6 billion. And they're giving it directly to children, right? To babies born over the next 2 years, and also kids up to 10, I believe. And what's interesting about that is they're just bypassing the NGOs altogether. They're saying we are going to, give this huge philanthropic gift, but we're going to give it directly to families in the form of these baby bonds, these sort of like trust funds, and hopefully watch the money grow, and teach some families that may not be into investing or may not really understand it, sort of how the stock market works. I sort of, I sort of like that. I think that that's probably a better way of spending that money than, throwing it to a nonprofit that's going to spend a bunch of money on, lawyers and bureaucrats. Um, Another thing that I've changed my mind on is social disorder. And this happened when I became a parent, I think.
Define social disorder.
Basically, as somebody who's lived in New York City for almost 20 years now and was born here, I've always had a pretty, I've always given a lot of leeway to sort of like the quality of life issues, like, rampant homelessness, people jumping the turnstiles in the subway, graffiti, littering, stuff like that. Like, because it's like, oh, that's just part of living in a city, like whatever. But since I had a kid, I've totally changed on this. I think that we should spend much more time and much more political capital fixing, not necessarily at the federal level, but fixing sort of these quality of life issues that plague particularly people who live in cities, but really across the country. That we shouldn't just say to ourselves that it's okay that you have to, step over a homeless person on the way to the subway every morning. And I'm not saying I don't think we should put homeless people, in prison. But I think that there's a sort of happy medium there, and I think also it's been a political disaster for Democrats who have more or less said, like, "No, we're willing to put up with sort of a certain amount of social disorder, in the name of social justice or whatever." I think that's been a totally a mistake, and I sort of blame or credit parenthood for sort of switching my views on that. So those are two for the price of one there.
What do you think the root causes of these like social disorders are? What would like the policy prescriptions be?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know off the top of my head. I think that, look, I mean, well, here's one, right? I think that criminal justice reform, which is something that this is actually sort of a third thing that I've kind of changed my mind on. I think that the idea of criminal justice reform is right. And I think that, the way the justice system works in this country is horrible if you get caught up in it, especially if you're, of lower income and you don't have the means to hire a lawyer who's going to fight for you. Um, and I don't think, putting people in jail. Again, back to what we were just talking about before. Like, I don't think you should, spend a year in jail if you hop the turnstile in the subway. But I do think that cracking down on violent crime, is one way to do it. One of those, the three strikes laws, which were a big thing back in the sort of like tough on crime days of the 90s, which have gone totally out of, no Democrat right now would run on a policy of bringing back three strikes laws. But I think that would be something that would be popular. People saying, Look, you basically have two. If you're a criminal, you have two chances to commit a violent crime. On your third, you're going to jail for a long time. Period. We're getting you off the streets. You are a repeat habitual offender, and it's wrong for an open society to tolerate that. So that's one.
Yeah. Not that anyone asked me,
Please.
but my guess would be to improve people's material conditions so they don't fall into poverty or crime. Uh, what do you say to that?
Well, no, I think, okay, Bernie Sanders. Uh,
I'm just saying
no, 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 no,
the scientists say.
no, no. I agree with you. I think that it's just that though I feel like that it comes across when Democrats talk about that as like whenever you hear a politician talking about like root causes, I don't know. I just always tune out because it's like, well, they're root causes for a reason. Like they can't really be fixed necessarily by like one policy. It's like when Biden gave Kamala Harris the job of finding of solving the root cause of migration. It's like, are you going to solve poverty in like South and Central America? Like, what are you talking about? Um, but yeah, I think I generally agree that yes, but I also believe that poverty is not something that can necessarily be solved. Like there's going to be
Yeah.
some level of poverty in this country, no matter what. But yes, giving people a better social, better safety net. Obviously, that's something we do terribly in this country, right? You're on your own
Yeah.
from the day you're born.
Yeah. I think that's on my mind too because we talk about a lot about affordability,
Right.
and that's like a big buzzword these days.
Sure.
So I don't know. We'll move on. We'll move on now. I'll stop giving my.
No, please editorialize away. There's no rules here. Look, I'm wearing a shirt with holes in it today, Mickey. I didn't even know we were going to have a show today.
All the time.
Okay.
So you know what? I'm always thinking about politics now.
Okay, good.
So
Well, good. I've got you then.
all right. Someone else who thinks about you a lot. Richard Jewell, who emailed.
Richard, wait. His name is Richard Jewell?
Yeah.
You know who that is?
No.
Richard Jewell was the guy who was falsely accused of bombing the Olympics in 1996. Clint Eastwood made a whole movie about him. He's dead now, so I assume it's not the same guy. But that's a good name, Richard Jewell.
Okay. Rich says, I'm an avid supporter of you and your editorials. I find myself aligned with you the majority of the time. Your insight brings some sanity to our insane era of political
Cacophony.
Which brings me to a subject that bears discussion. The growing horde of silent, frightened, and disgusted independent voters. What will be their impact, and what are their views on the elections, redistricting, usurpation of our Constitution, and continued executive branch grab for power? Oh, that's a loaded question.
Okay, that's a lot. Yeah, okay, well, I'm not an independent voter. I'm a registered Democrat, even though I hate the Democrats. But so I don't really know. Look, independent voters. The problem with independent voters is that they grant moral legitimacy to whichever party is out of power, right? So it's like if the Republicans in power, they swing to the left. If the Democrats are in power, they swing to the right. So it's like, what do you guys want exactly? But the same, on the same token, it's probably good for our body politic that not everybody is in the left versus right camp. So shout out to the independent voters. There was an NPR Marist poll from a couple weeks ago. I wrote it down here that if registered voters were choosing today, 55% would elect a Democratic candidate to represent them in Congress. 41% would vote for a Republican. The 14-point advantage is the largest since November 2017, a year before the Democrats won 40 seats in those midterms. So, what that's really telling you is the independent voters are swinging towards Democrats right now because there's this big thermostatic backlash against the Trump administration, which again, you could have seen coming from a mile away, right? The same thing happened in his first term, right? He goes to the max, he goes overboard, and the public swings back. Which again, that's
happens every 2 years.
Yes, and that's politically healthy to a degree. But yeah, so in terms of like how independents are going to move, I think that there's going to be, at the current rate, there's probably going to be a Republican blowout in the midterms next year. I would guess, but the bigger question about 2028 is just going to depend on what the economy looks like in 3 years. There's just no way to know. But I do think that we do these podcasts about, what were the big Trump outrages of the week, right? Because there's always something everyone's upset about for good reason. None of those things are going to actually matter when it comes down to it, right? To your point about material conditions, that is what the next two elections are going to be fought over. So it will depend on the state of the economy completely, and Trump would hate to hear it, but he doesn't have all that much control over the levers of sort of like economic and monetary policy that will make, big changes. That's why I think he's in deep trouble.
Sure. Speaking of 2028, Charles asks, say that you just won the 2028 presidential election. Uh, I don't want to imagine that one. Um, you're taking over from Trump. What would be the first official actions that you would take?
Okay, that is a good question, Charles. The first thing, okay, there's a few. So the first thing I would do is I would probably create some sort of working group to figure out how to get money out of politics. I don't know how to do that, right? I mean, Citizens United makes it obviously very difficult. So I don't have the policy answer there, but that is to me the sort of problem in our sort of like political moment, right? There is too much money in politics. So that would be number one. I would push for a congressional uh, term limit amendment immediately, right? I mean, I think that's something that almost everybody, except for like the gerontocracy that runs this country, would be in favor of, is like putting term limits on. You cannot be a lifelong member of Congress. Like it's just not good for anybody, right? Um, I would push for an assault weapons ban. That's one of my sort of liberal bona fides. I believe that the gun situation in this country is disgusting, right? The way that we um, pathologize guns, and I think that's something that you could get a lot of public buy-in for. Now, wouldn't necessarily be some sort of that I think would work within the confines of the Second Amendment is a ban on assault rifles like the AR-15, which again Clinton did this back in '94, right? So it's not like it can't be done. Obama could have done this if after Sandy Hook, if he had the political capital and the cojones to do it, which he did not. So yeah, that would probably be one of my number one things. What else? I would put out a request for proposal for on anyone in America on policies that are more pro-family and pro-child, pro-natalist, right? So that means, I
Hey,
mean,
JD.
yeah, it's Elon Musk's a big thing. No, I agree with JD Vance and them on this. Actually, I think that we need more children in this country. A lot of people, when I say that in the newsletter, write back and they're like, "What are you talking about? We have too many people. We need less." That's not true at all. Like the birth rate problem in this country is a disaster
I mean, to be
waiting to
they're
happen.
scared about their social security.
Yeah, of course, right. They're scared about that. People are scared. People don't want to have kids because they're worried that there's going to be a climate apocalypse in their lifetime. Like, there's all sorts of reasons for this. But yeah, I mean, one thing I would endorse ending the income tax on parents with young children, or at least scaling it back for every kid you have. And you could try and make up for that by increasing the marginal tax rate on the wealthy. That would be something I would endorse. That I think a lot of people would. And then the big one, which is something that I've been calling for a while now, is my idea of freedom weeks, codifying freedom weeks. So making
Like
so
the purge?
the purge, no. Like, okay, so Juneteenth is on June 19th. July 4th is on July 4th. Almost exactly 2 weeks, right? Two great holidays that celebrate different aspects of our freedom. We should make those 2 weeks a 2-week long federal holiday. Nobody works. You can put election day in there, right? It's just barbecues, vacations. We're just celebrating America. Uh, People have the day off to vote, which is something that we don't do. So yeah, I would institute the Carlos Freedom Weeks as my first order of business in my administration.
Is there any desire within you to hold elected office?
Hell no,
Yeah. I
never.
I don't think I'd vote for you. And I mean that with sincere, like, love and respect. I don't think I would vote for you.
Ouch, that kind of hurts my feelings. Okay, that's all right.
You can change my mind.
All right, yeah,
Fine.
well, that's what I'm here for.
Okay, moving on. Um, who or what is responsible for the present state of our economy? Says Carol.
What is responsible for the present state of our economy? Well, okay, that's like the opposite of the.
The historian in here.
Yeah, well, I mean, and you are in some ways, Carol. Right? Consumer consumption is 2/3 of GDP, right? So the consumer is responsible for a lot of our economy, for better or worse.
It's your fault, Carol.
Yeah, it's but I mean, if you want somebody to blame for the state of the economy, I mean, for one thing, it depends on what you think the state of the economy is, right? If you look at the stock market, we're crushing it, we're kicking ass. Um, but then, you go to the grocery store and it's $11 for a gallon of milk. So, we have this sort of two-tiered economy that we've had for a long time now. If you want to blame, I mean, there's a lot of blame to go around. You could blame Bill Clinton for, his trade policies, right? NAFTA, the World Trade Organization. Um, that would be probably number one on the list, right? Those policies really hollowed out the middle class, deindustrialized the country, um, made things cheaper, made it cheaper to buy plastic crap from China, right? Lifted a lot of Chinese people out of poverty. Didn't do much for us. You could blame George Bush for overseeing the housing bubble that cratered the economy in '07, '08. And you could blame Barack Obama for his decision when he came into office to recap it when the economy was cratering, to recapitalize Wall Street at the expense of Main Street and, do essentially nothing for the millions of people who lost their homes, and lost their jobs, and an entire generation of people who are now coming into their own, who were, raised to seeing the way that we handled the great financial crisis. Um, what is it, the Great Recession? What do we call it? The financial crisis, the Great Recession, and having becoming total nihilists about how politics works because nothing, uh, regular people got nothing, and the banks and the lenders that created the problem all got out scot free. So yes, the answers: you, Clinton, Bush, Obama, in that order.
All right. Um, okay, moving on to a hobby horse of yours,
Yes,
which anytime the word AI or slop comes up, that's
I
your
do.
go-to,
That's what
right?
I'm on right now. Yeah,
Paula asks, same Paula from last time?
probably. Yeah,
Okay.
Paula writes in all the time. I love Paula.
Um, she says, "You've got it backwards on your critique of Trump's AI policy. We need to stay on speaking terms with China, and we can use the money to pay down our debt. Listen to Jamie Dimon.
Mhm.
He will probably run for the Dems in 28. He, Bezos, Trump, and others don't want money for themselves. They want to keep the U.S. on top."
Okay, well, I mean, I don't agree with much of that. First of all, I don't think Jamie Dimon's going to run for president. I wouldn't if I were him. He's the head of J.P. Morgan. It's probably that's a way better job than being president of the United States. Um, Bezos, Trump, and these guys not wanting money for themselves. I don't know about Bezos, but I mean, Trump is running basically a family office of grifters in the White House. So I don't know if I agree with that. Um, so what she's talking about is what I wrote this week about these two aspects of Trump's AI policy that are not getting nearly enough attention in the media. One of them is he is lifting these export bans on these these very powerful chips that NVIDIA, the semiconductor company, they're big AI chips. We're going to now let China buy those. And in return, we, the U.S. government, the Treasury, is getting a 25% cut of whatever sales NVIDIA makes to China. Um, the other part of it is, which she's not talking about here, is Trump is about to sign an executive order that says that's going to limit states' ability to regulate AI, which is uh, awful, awful. But on the China thing, this is what I don't understand, right? So, are we friends with China, or are they our enemy, or what are they exactly? Because Trump ran as a China hawk. Now he's turning into a China dove. That's a total flip flop. You talk to Republicans in Congress. I mean, for years, they have tripped over themselves to burnish their anti China credentials. And now we're just essentially partnering with them on artificial intelligence, which is this technology that I have been told for years now we have to beat the Chinese to in order for us to even, for humanity to even exist in the future. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh no, actually, like for the right price, we'll sell them this, our IP that they don't have and are probably years away from getting. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I don't understand the sort of why Republicans are. I mean, I do understand they're afraid of Trump, but why they're so silent on this issue that should go totally against everything that they stand for, which is supposed to be state rights and being China hawks. And now we're not doing either of those things because Trump has decided, for whatever reason, that no, China's not so bad, and we're going to share our tech with them. And if you are a state government and you want to try and regulate, the proliferation of deep fakes or a OpenAI data center in your backyard, we, the federal government, are not going to let you do that. It's crazy.
Yeah. You done ranting?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, no, I'm not actually. She said one other thing about the debt. What did she say about the read it again, about the debt?
She said we need to stay on speaking terms with China and we can use the money to pay down our debt.
Okay. They're using the money to pay back our debt. Our debt is our debt grows by $70,000 a second, right? It's like $38 trillion right now. It's not really Trump's fault, although his big, beautiful bill blew this thing wide open. The CBO estimating it will increase the debt load by $2 to $3 trillion over the next 10 years. So, like taking a piece of NVIDIA sales to China to pay down the debt, it's like pissing in the wind, right? It's not. It's not meaningful, and the downside risk is huge. That's my answer, Paula. I still love you, Paula. Don't get me wrong. I love rapping with you. Keep sending the questions.
Okay. If there's no Paula, there'd be no mailbag episode.
Yeah.
Okay, last two questions are fun ones. First is from Carol.
Different Carol.
Different Carol, yeah. Carol with an E. She says, my husband was raised in a country that doesn't have a tradition of tipping. After 2 decades, he still sometimes asks me, is this a tipping situation? When do you tip and how much do you give?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I want you to answer that first.
Me?
Yeah.
20%.
Yeah, 20% is sort of I was always taught growing up in New York that
Yeah.
20% is sort of the baseline.
And my mom also taught me $1 per $5, which
That's not bad. So the way I do, okay, so at a restaurant, unless the service is just atrociously bad or like, they're spitting on your food or something, like, no, it's 20%. Maybe you give them an extra couple bucks if it's particularly good, right? My daughter and I go to this diner in Brooklyn every weekend and they always take care of us. So I always tip them more. If it's like a coffee shop or something, I think it depends. Now I've worked in food service. Have you ever worked in a restaurant?
yes.
So if you've worked in restaurants, you know how important tips are, right? So I think that is one way to look at it. The way that I try and split the baby, especially now with everything being so expensive, is like in a coffee shop situation. If they're creating a drink that requires more than pouring it into a container, that's tippable. If they're just handing me a drip coffee and like a donut or something, I tend not to tip. Maybe I should, but yeah. Also, I mean, it's like, right, an iced coffee in New York City is like $7 now. Something's got to give,
Crazy.
right?
Also, like, I hate when I go somewhere, like, I go to the same place every day to buy a Celsius, and then they flip the iPad around and it's like, do you want a tip? And I'm like,
Yeah, the iPad thing is terrible. That's terrible. Because then they're just standing there.
Yeah,
They're standing there.
I picked it up off the shelf.
Right.
I brought it to you.
Yeah.
No,
No, I know.
respectfully.
And then I feel guilty every time.
Right.
But no,
Guilt-based.
it is. Of course, like everything is. No, to answer the question for all you Europeans listening, come to America, try and tip at least 20%. If you're a tourist, try and increase it a bit if you can.
Cash is good too. And I mean, if you're a tourist, you're carrying around
Yeah,
cash anyway.
totally.
So, yeah. Okay. Last one. From Paulo.
Paolo.
Paulo.
Oh, I know Paolo. Okay.
Who would be a worse owner of Warner Brothers and HBO, Paramount and the Ellisons, or Netflix?
Good question. We talked about this in the newsletter this week. So if you're not paying attention right now, there's a big, the big story in Hollywood and really in business is this, Paramount is trying to do a hostile takeover of Warner Brothers after Netflix paid something like $70-80 billion to buy Warner Brothers, which includes HBO, last week. This is a political story because Trump is involved both because he's friends with the Ellisons, David Ellison and his father Larry, the Oracle guy, and also his son-in-law Jared, I believe, is involved in the Paramount bid. But he also had a meeting with Ted Sarandos of Netflix, according to reporting in Bloomberg this week, and he didn't tell Netflix that they couldn't do this bid. So look, I think both are probably bad. I think the way to look at it is Warner Brothers is a very storied, very important movie studio. And I'm not sort of an expert in these things, but I think that to the extent that you want them to be purchased, it's probably by a company like Paramount that at least also has roots in Hollywood, has a studio system, pays actors and crew members, how it's always worked. Netflix doesn't do any of that, right? They mean they don't. They've um, their whole business model. They don't want you to go to the movies, right? Anytime you go see a movie in theaters, that's bad for Netflix. So the idea that Netflix is going to own Warner Brothers and allow them to continue to put movies out in theaters. I mean, maybe they will for a little bit, but that's not why they're buying them. Anyway, long story short, this is a Alien versus Predator. Whoever wins, we lose scenario. I would probably rather the Ellisons than Netflix, I think.
You know, I wish if Netflix and, HBO, they're coming together, why can't I just pay one subscription fee? Why do I have to pay for Netflix
Well, that's
and
another.
HBO
uh,
Max?
That's a good question. I think that's another
Yeah.
part of this, right? But what about the argument that that HBO Max is keeping pricing pressure on Netflix? If Netflix absorbs it, I don't know. I don't know how that would work. I don't. Would that give Netflix more cause to raise prices even more than they're already doing? The better question to me is, HBO is one of the few outlets we have left that actually produces quality programming. What would happen if Netflix owned that? I mean, Netflix is not known for making good content,
Yeah.
right?
It's hit or miss.
It's hit or miss. It's mostly miss.
I know. I mean, they do Great British Bake Off now,
Okay.
and I live for Love Is Blind.
Yeah, I don't watch any of that reality stuff. Okay. Yeah.
That's why
Sorry.
I'm not voting for you.
Okay.
And that's the reason right there.
Okay. Is that the end of the mailbag for today?
Yes.
Okay. Well, hopefully we answered some questions to the best of our ability here. Mickey, thank you so much. Everybody else, you can always email me. Well, I'm not going to tell you my email address. It's in the newsletter. It's already out there.
It's okay. I'll put it in the description.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So you can email me. We'll answer your emails either here or I'll do it via writing, one way or the other. But thank you guys, and we'll see you again soon.